Mama, what if wealth wasn't just about money, but it was also about freedom, peace, and quality of life? Today, I sat down with Angie Garner and we talked about creating real wealth, designing freedom on your own terms, and building a life that you don't need a vacation from. If you're ready to stop just surviving and start living, this conversation's for you. Hey, mamas, welcome back to Mamas Building Businesses. I'm really excited today. I am joined by Angie. She is a 15-year entrepreneur, a world schooling mama, and helps people today build real wealth and work with their nervous system to create lives that they actually enjoy. Angie, I appreciate you being here today.
Thanks for having me, Erica.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about who Angie is. For somebody who's never met you, who are you as Angie, as a mom and a wife, as an entrepreneur?
Well, that's a loaded question, my friend, but here's what I'll start with. My biggest core value is freedom. I love to wake up each day and design my life. And so my decisions around how I make money, how I build a business, how I parent all like revolve around a life by design. And it's been that way since the beginning. I'm just a free-spirited girl. I'm that friend that will go skinny dipping with you. You don't have to ask twice. I'm that friend that actually yesterday my version of church was like this big ecstatic dance party. And we just dancing is something that feels so vulnerable for so many people. And it's such a good thing to get in tune with your body. I'm actually trained in somatic coaching as well, which is body work. So I guess my point in that and sharing that is that I value freedom and experience and growth. And that's what Angie's all about is living my best life now, making as much impact as I can in my family and in with the people that I work with.
And I think that's why you resonated with me so much. We met online and I'm very big on freedom. I wish that I knew when my kids were little the things that I knew now, because who knows, maybe I would have been a world schooling mama. I think that the life that you and your husband are providing for your kids is amazing. So tell us a little bit how, like, if it was a series of events or what made you take that dive into world schooling and how old your kids are, because it's
Yeah.
pretty exciting.
So I have a 7-year-old girl, Sophia, and I have a 4-year-old boy, Jones. And since the beginning of our relationship, since our very first date in 2010, my husband and I have talked about traveling the world together. And actually, on our very first date, I asked America, I said, what like has to happen in your life? And he said, I got to have kids. I really want to be a dad, and I want to go on a trip around the world. So James, my husband and I had done extensive traveling before kids. And people would always say, yeah, go before the kids. Good idea. And then once I had kids, I was like, yeah, they weren't kidding. It is so much harder to do all the things as parents. I mean, everything is so much harder. So, long story short, we always envisioned, though, a freedom-based lifestyle, and that was an idea that got planted in our heads back years ago. We both read on separate occasions The 4 Hour Work Week. Have you ever read this book by Timothy
I
Ferriss?
have. I actually attribute it to what made me shift and realize that time was so much more valuable than money. It's incredible. It's an incredible book.
Yeah, reading that and Rich Dad Poor Dad right around like 2008 really set the course for how I make decisions and have been building out my life. And so that idea was planted in our head that, hey, as long as we work remotely and have passive components to what we're building, we can live anywhere in the world. And we've tried out a lot of places. I've been to around 25 countries now, and we've narrowed down some of our favorites and where we want to return again and again. We have a home rooted in the Pacific Northwest, but right now we're on an adventure, kind of trying out some potential other places to live and at least, spend a few months a year.
That's
So
so
just to clarify, world schooling, it's kind of like this big term of schooling your children around the world. So it could mean enrolling in a international school. It could mean meeting up for a world school hub or like a homeschooling hub. There's like a lot of different iterations to it. It could just mean homeschooling while you're on the road. But the gist of it is the kids are learning their normal curriculum, yes, but also ex life experiences that you're just not going to get staying in the same suburb.
And it's an incredible, incredible adventure. I just cannot imagine. I love traveling as well, and I can't imagine how exciting that must be for your kids to have that growing up. And so when you and your husband decided to like take this big trip that you're on right now, where you are, because you're going from like Central America to Europe to you're taking an incredible, incredible adventure right now. What were some of the things in your life that you really had to prepare in order to do that? So that's your home in the Pacific Northwest, that's finances. Like what did that preparation look like for you?
Really, the biggest hurdle is we had to move my husband out of his job. So we had gone on a trip around the world in 2016, came back, started our family, and he started a very corporate position in real estate and mortgage. And it provided really well, and he hated every second of it. And so he spent 8 years grinding 7 days a week. And throughout these last 8 years, we got so intentional about what it really means to build wealth, where we're allocating our money to protect it, to grow it, to take some risk with it. And so the preparation began years ago. This wasn't just an overnight process or like on a whim, like let's just pack up and rent out our house. Everything was intentional, and we've been manifesting it, writing it down for years. So transitioning my husband out of his job meant we had to have other income sources to rely on. Now, our cost of living, when you add in the travel and short-term rentals, it's still cheaper than where we were living. So there's not as much pressure financially, but it's not cheap. Now, in the 4-hour work week, Tim Ferriss does, this was a different time though. 20 plus years ago, traveling was way cheaper. And so the world has shifted too. We've had to shift some of our expectations as well. But to answer your question, we had to establish further income streams and really just nothing's perfect. We're not multimillionaires yet. So it's not like we're just, riding pretty and getting massages all day. We're still working. We're working everywhere we go. We're serving our finance clients, and I serve my wellness team. So those are the income streams that we're focused on.
Which is really to me the purpose of freedom, right? It's not that we just don't
Mhm.
work because I subscribe obviously to that lifestyle too. We still work hard. It's just being more intentional about how and where we work, right? And where we put our effort so that we can have this life that we want. When I read The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, I mean, it was my first true wake up call. I did not grow up in a culture of freedom by any stretch of the imagination. And I grew up in well, obviously here in the States, but just like my family culture, I come from very, very hard workers and like hard workers to the point that like if you don't hate your job, you're probably not working hard enough, right? Like just the old school, like you're going to trade your time
Sucker.
for money. Yep. And and so when I read the 4-Hour Work Week, the biggest epiphany I had about the value of time and money was he says something in there along the lines of if you see a job, and again, this is 20 years ago, or I think when he wrote the book, something close to that, but he said if you see a job and it's they pay $20 an hour, most people would look at that and think, "Oh, that's decent money." And of course, back then it was. And well, compared to the norm, right? But if you knew that you were going to die next week, would you give up an hour of your life for $20? And when you shift that
Mhm.
perspective, it really makes you reevaluate, like, how much is that time worth? So well, let me ask you this first. So, how would you define wealth? Because I think we're kind of taught that like wealth and money go hand in hand, but money is just a tool. So I'm interested to know how you define wealth.
Money is a piece of wealth because it allows you to make decisions differently.
Yeah, gives you
And
choice.
so when we could get really granular with this answer, like wealth is your net worth, or it's your assets versus liabilities, which is net worth. Um, I truly believe wealth encompasses a lot more than that. It encompasses relationships, A big reason why we're doing this travel, we're actually at a world schooling hub right now with other very like-minded, amazing families, like instant best friend type families. And that was something we really, really struggled to find where we were living before. So wealth is relationships. Wealth is it's the ability to wake up and choose who you spend your time with, what you do to earn income, and really how you design your life day to day. Sometimes we think of like these big goals, like, mm, I want to buy a boat next year, or I want to go to the Amalfi Coast for my 40th birthday, and these big, you know, highlight moments of life. But wealth is really spent in the day to day. Like, I love those highlights too. Don't get me wrong. I love all those things. But the day to day, like, how are you waking up? Are you in a regulated state? Do you know what it means to get yourself in a regulated state? Are you enjoying the time with your children? Maybe not every second, but finding those pockets where you can really enjoy your loved ones. Wealth is your health. Are you moving your body in ways that feels good? Are you fueling your body with nutrition that takes care of your gut and your energy? Wealth is very all-encompassing. Um, so it's hard for me to give you a one sentence answer there, but wealth is something that sometimes people can even see it in you because they can sense your regulation. Um, they can see it on your face. It's your ability to manage your stress. I mean, there's just so many things that go into play, and money's a big one because when you aren't feeling in a sense of lack, which is really up here, it's however you define it. But if you're feeling in a scarce energy, it's going to affect every area of your life. So every individual requires something different financially, and you have to take the time and define what that means for your family. I know what we're building towards. I am excited for that stage in my life when we have such a large accumulation of assets that whether a client deal falls out or not, it doesn't impact my daily life, right?
Yeah.
Um, or something that my husband and I have been working on because we've always been in sales, and with him leaving his job, we have two components to our business. We have our finance business, which is what I would consider like a high ticket sale of service, and then we have more of a low ticket, but it's my online wellness shop. So we're always working with people, and people don't always do what they say they're going to do. They cancel appointments. Like, this is just the nature of sales. It's the nature of any business. And so for the business mamas listening to this, it's so critical to establish habits and routines mentally when things aren't going your way for that day, that week, that month, that quarter. Like, we all have those. And so learning to navigate those feelings is a huge part of your wealthy, abundant experience in your life.
I love that answer, and I agree with you completely. I mean, it encompasses so much, and money is a huge part because it just gives us choice, right? Like, the more money you have, the more resources you have, the more choice you have in your life. But there is this like overarching like quality. What is the quality of your life, and how are you creating a life that you want? Because the life you want, looks different than the life I want, then looks different than the next mama, right? And so, with that being said, in talking about how do you regulate like those negative emotions? So, let's lean into that a minute because you are very big on nervous system work, right? And what impact do you feel that like nervous system regulation and emotional regulation have um, on building business and building wealth for yourself?
It has an enormous impact if you actually want to enjoy what you're building. Okay, like you can move out of a job and into entrepreneurship and hate it just as much and dislike your day to day if you don't learn to ride the ebbs and flows. Like, there is going to be disappointments and waves to ride in any industry. And so it's massively important because it also affects the energy that you're showing up with your clients, with your team, if you're speaking, if you're sharing, you know, every aspect of our day. It affects your marriage, it affects your relationship with your kids. And so what can we do to get in a regulated state? What does that even mean? There are a few practices that I go to, things such as breath work, and it could be just really simple, not even just like 2 minutes of tuning out everything and focusing on your breath. Listening to music, moving your body, um, something like yoga would work or dance. So music, breath work, things that are moving energy through our body. That is part of how you regulate, but also just really understanding yourself too. Maybe you're somebody who regulates well with somebody else. And maybe that means that you do need a therapist or a coach or somebody to kind of help you navigate life. Maybe you regulate well on your own. And for you, it's jumping in the ocean for a swim or going for a walk, moving your body in that way. Um, my husband and I are swimming almost daily here, and it's like an instant regulation afterwards. Or maybe you don't have access to a warm ocean to jump into, and so you invest into a hot tub or a sauna or a cold plunge so that you have something that you have access to regulate your body and at least shift how you're feeling.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think it's the having practices and whatever that looks like. And I love that you really highlight like the movement in your body because I think that in my experience, I have been in the personal development space, right? Just myself immersed in it for several years. And I think a lot of times people talk a lot about regulation as like having quiet time. And I think it can be that too. But I do think there's a very different level of regulation when you have movement in your body and moving energy through your body. So how because you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. So, how did you come to a place of nervous system regulation? Because if I had to guess, you didn't probably start there when it came to like personal development. So,
Yeah.
what did that journey look like for you that you kind of kept digging deeper until you got to this?
For the first 10 years or so of entrepreneurship, I was in a really heavily like personal growth culture, and I love it. I love growing. But it honestly got to the point, Erica, where like everything felt repetitive to me. And I'm like, yeah, I get this, but what else? Like it ultimately it led me on a spiritual journey
Hmm.
because the personal growth layer, like the basics of like show up and do what you say you're going to do, be consistent, develop your leadership, maintain habits. All that is like actually like just it's almost like set your goals, like very like kind of masculine, like do, 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 do. And I just realized there's this whole other world, and I like all that stuff. I do that stuff. There's a whole nother world that exists in the spiritual and energetic realm. And I've always been a woman of faith. So really my walk with God is a big part of that. But how do I feel more connected to God? It's another way for you to maybe kind of define regulation, and so it truly is a spiritual journey. And so I just got to this point in my own journey, Erica, where like the personal growth journey continued to develop into the spiritual journey. And that's where you just start asking even deeper questions of how am I showing up? I honestly became a necessity when I had my second kid. First kid came along, rocked my world, of course, becoming a mom for the first time. But to be honest, I also had a very consistent income from my first network marketing company. I didn't have to rush off to work. I didn't have to take appointments. I was just nursing a baby for a year. When my second baby came along, I had started with a new company, so it was more like in the startup phase, and it was just a lot more hectic. And I had a full-time nanny, and I didn't even know if I liked that. And I was just trying to figure out my lifestyle now as a mother of two. And I was just ugh, so blah for the first few years that I, out of necessity, had to dig deeper and go, I want to enjoy my life. I don't want to wish these years away. I need to find that place. There's no perfect balance. There's going to be ebbs and flows, but a place where I can come back to myself and my connection with God and operate my life from that state. And so ultimately, you've never really arrived, but you'll have good days and bad days type of thing.
Yeah.
But does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And that was one of the reasons why I asked that question was because I always say that I think entrepreneurship is so much more of a spiritual journey than anything else. And I think that when somebody first comes into, being a business owner or entrepreneurship from especially like from the corporate world, because that's where my background is, like you kind of feel like, oh, okay, if I learn these business skills, and you think that it is like learning these specific skills, and it's not, it's so much more of that, and it's stretching yourself. And so then you kind of like go into this personal development. And the thing is, like you said, all of those, show up, do what you say you're going to do, be consistent, all of those things are necessary. But if you don't have like this deeper foundational work that you're willing to dive into, you always feel resistance there because, like, this is why most people, they don't stick to New Year's resolutions and diets, is when you're just working off willpower, there's always a resistance to what you're doing. But when you dig deeper into the more spiritual, the more, learning like really really like who am I and what am I capable of, and how do I manage myself, and in the spiritual journey of, you know God, and what does that relationship look like, and who do I lean on, and those sort of things, it makes it like it's still the work, you still do those things, but it comes from a place of more like understanding and flow than like constant resistance. Would
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Because that's been my experience.
Yeah, and I think another way to describe that is you're not doing stuff because you feel this feeling that have to do it. You are doing the work because you feel called to do it.
Mhm.
And it truly, you show up differently and you honestly care a lot less about rejection and no's, and you just keep moving forward because it's a vision for your life. And that's part of the process too. And that requires faith.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. And like the showing up differently, you just have a different impact too on people, right? Like it's not this transactional. That for me was where I moved from, like having my marketing agency into this community, is because it was so transactional, and a lot of um I worked with a lot of pro athletes, which they're amazing, and from a business perspective it's great because they have the money to spend. But
Mhm.
from an impact perspective, like my cup just wasn't full because what I was doing for them wasn't their bread and butter. And so there was very little like impact, and it didn't feel very aligned with purpose. And that that purpose piece is huge. Like when you're like,
Well,
I'm creating. Yeah.
yeah, and on that note, I found after years and years of buying teammates books and bringing them to conferences and like really trying to help them grasp personal growth at like this more cerebral level, I
Mhm.
realized that the real connection and growth happens at the heart level.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I just don't know how to help them or me, and so ultimately it's the real growth journey is getting in and working through our blocks and the muck and our past stories and all that comes as part of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm a big believer too that we're just made for connection. And so it's like when you're going through and doing these things because you're checking a box off of a to-do list, but you don't have real connection with the people you're working with, right? That's like a very different experience on both sides. On
Yeah.
both sides. So with like all of the phases you've been through in, entrepreneurship, life, motherhood, your personal growth journey, now, when you look at, say, you were looking at a new stream of income, what are the
Mhm.
things that you take into consideration before you decide, like, is this worth my time and energy?
Yeah, well, the way that I build out the foundation for our family is I make sure that the income streams for our family both cover like high ticket, big commission sales and a residual component. Um, so going back to your original question of like what builds wealth, well, if you want safe money wealth, you have to be thinking about different buckets of where your money's going. So if I'm evaluating an opportunity, um, first of all, personally, does it align with my values? Personally, do I have bandwidth to really give this attention? And I have a more capacity than the average person. I know that I can handle a few things at once. It's also, I'm a manifesting generator. I actually do really well that way, but that's not everybody. And so this also goes back to personal growth. How well do you know yourself?
Hmm.
How do you know what you value? What's important to you and your family? And that's why nobody can tell you what's the best opportunity for you. I know at this stage in my life, after being now with two network marketing companies that ended up either closing or going affiliate only, what matters most to me in an opportunity is stability, a strong track record, and real value in the marketplace, which is why I've begun building for the long run where I am. When it comes to anything else, any commission sales business, there's also a risk reward. So, how much risk are you willing to take? James and I, we a few years ago, we invested into Amazon stores. We lost $120,000. That for us was like a dumb tax that we don't want to pay again. So
Yeah.
anytime someone comes to me with any opportunity that even remotely seems too good to be true, I'm going to dive in much, much further and really understand what the investment entails. To be totally honest, at this point in my life, Erica, I am very happy putting my money in safe places like life insurance, real estate, and properly tax advantage retirement accounts for self-employed. So I do have a diversification across the stock market, real estate, life insurance is my safety hub. And then with the goal of turning these buckets of money into actual income when the time matters. Ultimately, for financial freedom, everybody needs income. It's
Absolutely.
another reason why I am rebuilding a network marketing income stream. I've made over $1 million in the industry. And I know what happens when you put in the time with a product that people order over and over again, and you get paid every single time. So that is hugely important. So the other piece to what I do and how I help people is through retirement planning and specifically helping people create their own pensions. I know that if you want to turn on $1,000 a month of lifetime income, depending on your age and other details, it could take around $100,000, $150,000. Meaning, if you're thinking about the future like I am, it's one of my strengths. I think about the future. What's it going to take to build that income stream in the future? Why not do it now? So I am a huge believer that every family needs some sort of component of residual passive income. Also a believer that if you feel stuck financially, your fastest way out of and to make more money is with sales. And so find something that you believe in, that you truly can learn the skill sets to sell. You don't need to know how to do it right away. You need to find a mentor. And that's how we get ahead, people. Make more money, spend smarter, and invest wisely. And if you do both of those, if you up your income and you are able to tail back the spending, you have more of a gap to invest. That's how you get it into vehicles that can pay you while you're sleeping so you can actually have financial freedom.
Yeah. I agree 1000%. I always say to people, I don't necessarily believe that entrepreneurship is for everybody, but I do believe multiple streams of income are. And so, like, how do you create that in a way that works for you? So, to bring it full circle, for the mama listening who feels stuck in scarcity and she feels overwhelmed with all the options, right, that we see on social media all the time. You have stocks, you have crypto, you have network
Mhm.
marketing, you have work from home jobs, you have all kinds of stuff. What are one to two simple first steps she can take when it comes to building wealth, but also regulating her nervous system?
Yeah. Well, both of those require something really critical that not a lot of people take time for, and that's truly spending time alone. And journaling, reflecting, praying, meditating, whatever you do at that time, it's so essential that you get clear about who you are and what you feel called to or what you want to accomplish in this lifetime. Because otherwise, you're just showing up on social media, getting fed all these opportunities, and you're just scattered and feel really overwhelmed, and then you do nothing.
Hmm.
Find a mentor. You got to find a mentor who's doing or has done what you want to do. Any industry, you've got to find a mentor. So there's a lot of ideas out there. There's a lot of people peddling a lot of ideas. I can tell you, after 15 years of building online, I've probably dabbled in quite a few of them. Nothing I've ever seen can pay you a return on your time like network marketing. But even when you're evaluating a marketing company opposed to others, there are a lot of things that if you just don't know what to look for, you just won't know. So you've got to find a mentor that has spent time in the industry that has vetted companies properly. Um, that'd be my best advice. Everything major that I've accomplished is because I've had the right team in my pocket. There's no question.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100,000%. The the mentor and the spending time alone, because I think it's really hard to have discernment and trust your own, like trust yourself and trust your intuition when it comes to hearing all these things.
And also so you can believe in yourself. Because
Absolutely.
if you need belief in what you're selling and what you're building, but you need belief in yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to crash and burn 3 weeks in after a few rejections.
Yeah.
Like, it's important to know, my friends, there's no easy path. There's no like easy button here. So any route that you choose is going to challenge you. That's how growth is had. Everything that we want is on the other side of that commitment to growth. So start having conversations. Treat your pursuing the right business outlet like a job interview. You're interviewing people. Like, hey, tell me how you've done this. What's the actual day-to-day work like? What's the hardest part about what you're doing? We just need to ask better questions when we're evaluating opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You have been a blessing. This has been a great conversation. I so appreciate you being here. And for any mama watching who would like to connect with Angie and follow along on her incredible journey of entrepreneurship, motherhood, world schooling, I will put the links in the description for you to connect with her. And if you're enjoying these conversations, please like and subscribe. Thanks so much, Angie.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.